is the OTP presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau is for those who make plans for everything except themselves. We make it easy and affordable for Tennesseans who don't have a group or employer plan. Visit fbhp.com to learn more. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the OTP. We are still here in Indianapolis. We're not done yet, and we have more conversations that we want to share with you. And the first one is Cynthia Frelund. Now, Cynthia Frelund, you have seen on NFL Network. You've seen her do all kinds of analytics and tell you who to put in your fantasy football lineup or who you should be making bets on or why someone ran really fast or jumped super high. She is one of the smartest people that we know, and we are so excited whenever we get the chance to talk to her. And wow, her insights, well, they're just amazing. So this is our conversation with NFL Network's Cynthia Frelund. All right, Cynthia Frelund from NFL Network. Hi. We are so happy to have you here.
Always good to hang out with you guys.
You're always our favorite conversation because you have such a unique perspective on everything that happens here. No,
weird.
It is not weird. It's exciting. And I think that there's so many cool things about what you do, the way that you are able to approach events, even like this here at the Combine, where there's a lot of data, a lot of information coming at us.
Fake news in this one, though.
But we just need to figure out what it all means.
Not a lot.
Not a lot?
They've already done the things that mean the most.
Yeah. Yeah, but still there are numbers that we are receiving that need to be ingested and communicated, and that's what you're here for.
Yes. So when you're looking at all the prospects, especially, today is an interesting day. Tomorrow when the quarterbacks throw will be interesting as well. None of these drills, it's all about ranges. Coach, I'm looking at you. Make sure, keep me honest here.
I will.
Absolutely.
But let me just say this. What you do is really good.
See? I told you.
That's so nice.
No, it's approval right there.
It's legit.
Nice.
It is legit. And people that really want to open up their minds about what this is, because, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's different. It's different, but it's relevant.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
I try really hard on that. Because the point is there's a lot of ways you could say the same thing, right? And the broadcast, sometimes you're watching a game, right? It'll be like Titans game, and they'll be like, oh, the analytics say go for it. And there's not just like this one analytics czar that's being like, you must go for it. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, it's, what's your strategy? Do you, the Super Bowl was a place, right? Do you want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball back, kick 3 points and give it back to him on the 40? Or do you want to make him go 90 yards with your defense if you're the Eagles? That's the and I'm not the one making that decision, but that's the way to look at that's the way to approach the problem. Mm-hmm. You can make your own decision, but there's no analytics say. Who is the analytics? Where are they? I don't even know.
Who is analytic?
Yeah, but here is the same thing, right? When you're watching everyone, even the 40s, which are super fun, very hard to do. You forget that these guys, this is a lot of interviews, and it's a lot of, following rules and, being in, you must go here, be shuttled there, talk to these 5 people, do these 15 interviews, it's a lot of, the ritual of the Combine and, don't be a jerk, be one of the guys. There's a lot going on here, so to be able to perform at such a high level, that's part of it, and that's part of what you're really being tested on. So if you do run, as long as you're within the ranges that are relevant to your position, that's great. It kind of verifies everything we've seen on tape from you, and we can move on with our evaluation. If you do something crazy out of range, like you run really, really fast or you run really, really slow, it causes people to go back and double check their work. You just don't want to be one that goes back and double check their work for the bad stuff. You want, why did you run so, what's going on? Are you hurt? You just kind of want to interview super well. You want to do the things that are great. And, certain drills, those position-specific drills, look at people's footwork. On the 3-cone drill, I'm an offensive line person. Russ Grimm, that was the whole reason I did my whole stupid math. He owes me money.
Well, let me just say this. I know Russ very well, just like you do.
He told me nothing I could do would ever be interesting to him, and then I spent a whole master's degree getting.
Well, and here's the thing. It's good that he owes you money because he's got it.
I know.
So get it.
He should pay for your master's
Sir,
degree.
sir, my student loans are still being paid. Can we have a little help here? But that's it's like when you're watching the 3-cone drill, watch the speed of their feet. Watch if they're getting, you can see it with your eyes. You don't necessarily need something as advanced as what I use for it. If they look like they're kind of swaying and their balance is wrong, probably not good moving laterally. It's not, it doesn't need to be perfect for what outside, when you're watching, you're like, I like this offensive line. Why? His feet are good. His balance looks good. His base is wide. He keeps his feet moving. Like, there's just some things, right? But if you can do that and be fast at the 3-cone drill, for example, then you're probably good. This is not a very strong O-line class. I will say that, at least on tape from college, it's not, but maybe someone will impress me and I'll have to go back and check my work.
What's interesting with this for the Tennessee Titans where we're sitting is that
Travis Hunter better be on your team because I love him.
Yeah, that's
What?
your guy? I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to make you pick favorites right now, but
I'm picking favorites. I already did a mock draft, and I was like, you must take him.
Okay.
And you must make him play wide receiver.
We were going to ask you about that.
You
so
need to
that's
see
perfect.
this mock draft. For everybody watching the OTP that loves mocks, Cynthia has a different level in this thing because her mocks, CynthiaFrelund.com, NFL.com,
Yeah.
on YouTube, The Numbers Game.
Thank you.
And her caveats are no trades, and then there's also the free agency part of this that's factored in. And so it's no secret. You have told us Travis Hunter is the pick that you had for the Titans at 1. Why?
Yes.
Well, number one, the number of snaps that this guy played, 112 snaps, that's like he's basically played 2 full college seasons in one season.
Correct.
So you have less of that like rookie falling off the – and when by the way, not this year, but we're going to 18 games, so that's going to be increasingly more important. So this guy's played the stamina and his fatigue level, so play 1 to play 112 or snap 112 for him, he really doesn't get the level of fatigue of. I don't know if he's human. He might be a robot.
Might be
That's
a cyborg
okay.
there.
I'm
Yeah.
100% on board with drafting
Right.
robots.
Yeah,
Let's
like,
go.
Pretty
I'm in.
sure, I don't know, but he does not lose the speed. The change of direction speed is one of the first to go when you're tired, usually in the fourth quarter. No, sir. Like I'm not sure what he's eating. I need to find out. Yeah. Like it's good, right? But ultimately he's a really special player, and no shade against quarterbacks. I have no, I think they're all great people. Like, I hope all of them succeed. I want everyone to be good. I would love all 32 teams to be great and every game be like all chess, and not injuries or whatever. But that's just not the case. It's really hard to evaluate these 2 specific quarterbacks. To me, the best one is Cam Ward. That's what I have. And he ranks like he would be 4th in last year's class.
Yeah.
So
that's consistent with what we've heard kind of across the board. That's
a lot of it is incomplete resumes. I don't know. Because of the transfer, we're in this weird bubble with like the end of the transfer portal NIL situation. They're not playing advanced concepts in college right now because everyone keeps moving around.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I've evaluated for a while.
Like maybe 10 years.
Yeah. But
times 4.
now that you mentioned that, you're dialed in. When you don't have a complete body of work at one place in one system, you used to when I was evaluating Jake Plummer to draft him when I was the head coach of the Cardinals.
Yep.
I had all that time at Arizona State to look at him. You have all these now. Just your point with them moving like that. How does that affect what you do?
Oh, it makes it. Like the variance goes from like here to there, right? Like
that's what I'm.
And you know what else it really messes up? That's like the unintended consequences. O-linemen, because find me a pulling guard. I dare you. Like, hello. Like, they just don't do that anymore. They don't have time to get to level 2 and 3 in many of these places because these guys, it's a different quarterback or it's a different this, or they have too many players moving team to team. So they're the wide receivers here and they was there and now you can do this. You have to keep it simple.
This makes so much sense, though. Think about the young player. I'm having a little bit of like a revolution right now. Think about the young players that we have seen in the last 2-3-ish years. Think about where they've struggled. Mm-hmm. Just think in your brain all of the young players you've seen that haven't really clicked until like week 8, week 9. Why are they struggling? Because these are advanced concepts in football. We're not flashing you pictures and colors on the sidelines. You're not looking at your armband to match the color to the thing. You have to communicate this with your mouth to the people around you, and you haven't had a chance to do that because you've played for 5 different schools. Oh, my gosh, it makes so much sense. And then coaches have to dumb down what they're doing
and
for
by
their
the way,
stupid kids who just got here.
And listen, I'm not a psychologist, but the
sense.
Psychology of it, when I talk to some of the psychologists, they have not been coached the same way. Like, I went to Boston College. Yeah. Matthias Nuka is one of my best friends to this day. Mm-hmm. They were coached hard at BC. And that's part of what Matthias credits to his transformation from a guy who was a redshirt freshman to a first-round draft pick. And part of it was like there was discipline, like, and they kind of can't do that now because the kids are like, peace out, going in the portal. Like,
yeah,
it's a lot less of a commitment than it was before. They have more power. And maybe they had too little power before. Maybe it wasn't right before, and I think they should have gotten paid. But I think their employees, I don't know, we're getting into it. I think their employees, I think they should have to sign a contract. They're adults.
Yeah.
Like, if they're getting paid a lot of money, they should say, like, I'm going to be here for at least this amount of time.
Yeah.
I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Treat me as such.
See, the fact that you bring
crazy.
the psychology part of it into it, I mean, that's really important because at the end of the day, it's still a people business. And again, in my career, I've seen it change the way that you approach these players.
And they look at you like this now. I know you guys are, it's an audio medium, but
no,
it's like down here. Like, I'm like, hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm going to do it. Here are the questions when I'm interviewing. Here are the questions I'm going to ask you. How does it feel to be here today? I mean, these are easy. Like, I'm not asking them like
softball, pitch and catch.
I'm like, hey, let's talk about quantum physics. Not doing that. So, it's like, but they're looking down, and it's like this pendulum eyes thing, and I'm like, I'm not. There's what I'm up here, and it's like
right, and
yeah,
and I'm so like if I were I tell agents this all, I'm like, work on eye contact, work on like, don't let them use their screen. Like, I think they're addicted to screens and like they don't want to take it. Like, they're thinking about when they can pull their phone out again. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm not a psychologist, but I'm like, look me in the eye, sit down and be patient and present. It's very weird.
Just think about what I'm saying and answer the question.
But it's much harder to learn. Maybe you adapt then and like create a full video game style to teach them the playbook. But like, I don't know if that's the way to do it either. Like, maybe you meet somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure, but
it's different.
It's so different. They don't drink. They don't party. They like do party, like do other things, but like not. Yeah. It's very different. It's very different.
And the other thing that you mentioned,
we drank beer.
And the other thing is that there's real money involved now.
Yeah.
I mean, real money.
Real money.
Used to be the real money didn't come in until you were in this league.
That's right.
Now they've got real money. If they're really a dude, they've got real money after the first year.
Do you know what I would have bought when I was 19?
Yeah, and probably not good things, but you would have bought a lot. When you factor that in too, I mean, does that factor into your thinking with your stuff too?
My next iteration of how I model, I really want to do like the psychology. Like, I want to be like, I think I want to like take some more classes. This is where, Russ.
Oh no.
My bank account. I don't need another degree, but I'd like to take a class in like the psychology of like, technology and like where we are right now. And like, people are so afraid of AI and what that means. Like, and like this fear of it. And I want to understand a little bit more about the psychology around that, because I think like there's ways to, you have to kind of adapt and adopt modern things. Otherwise you get smoked by them. So, these things happen.
Sure.
So, but I would like to know the psychology of all of it. Like, I'm very curious about that. I'd like to factor that in. It's really very hard to create a model with what people think, but it would be good to know, because then when you're looking at exceptions, you can say, what am I seeing here? Is this an exception or is this a trend?
That's fascinating.
Cynthia, I'm so glad you said that, because I wrote down this question. I said, where does AI fit into the expansion of analytics in the National Football League, in your opinion?
I think it's the same thing. So to me, in general, the good information in, good information out. Bad information in, bad information out. Now we have the horsepower to have a lot more information in a faster pace. So in a few years ago, you could maybe watch 4 games before, you have to do your install for your next game and whatever. Now you can watch a lot or pieces of certain things, but if you're not looking at the right pieces, it doesn't really matter. If you can spend a lot of time watching the wrong stuff. But I think a little bit of a gut check and a little bit of like the devil's advocate. I think people are very bad at giving critiques nowadays. Like, it's one thing to take criticism, it's another thing to be able to give it. And if I know if I'm a tight ends coach and I know my offensive coordinator is like not factoring in something right, they don't feel empowered to say something right. So it's about figuring out where am I missing, what hole am I missing, and how can data help make me 10% better. You don't need to go 100%, right? Like, if you were 10% better in every game, you have 17 games. That's a 1.5 games more wins. Mm-hmm. I understand a half a game doesn't happen, but think about it, right? Like, over time, that adds up. If you make 10% better decisions, it's just like compound interest, right? You get 8% every year. You double your thing and whatever. So I'll stop talking about math now, but yeah.
No, but that let me ask you this. Since the inception of what you decided when Russ funded all of your.
Russ
did
Thank
not
you.
fund.
Russ funded all of your.
Bank of America
education.
coming your way.
Yeah, here we go. Have you experienced or do you feel any more acceptance now?
Yeah.
See, that's great.
I've been no, look, the thing about Russ that I liked was he was never mean about it. He wasn't like people get mean, like, there's egos in this league. You don't last as long as you've been here without people being like just idiots. And people are super risk averse. A lot of the people that we see in this, the risk aversion is an epidemic proportion. You're like, oh, they're doing this to save their job. I'm like, when has that ever worked? Yeah. Right? Like maybe 3% of the time, like something crazy. So to me, the better way to frame things would be like, this is the risk I'm comfortable with taking, putting my chips on the table. I keep telling my new strategy for coaches, especially coaches who are in a position where like it feels like maybe their job's on the line. I'm like, what you should do is you should hire a professional gambler, not for gambling, we work at the NFL, but to teach you how to bluff.
Yeah.
Because they need an outside perspective on run a different play. Everyone's very predictable in our league, and their risk aversion is so high. So I think you could bluff a little bit, and you could gain this edge of maybe 4 or 5 plays a game, 60 games with 60 plays in a game. Well, that's a pretty significant edge. Just interesting stuff. Like, be a little different with it, but make it make sense to what you're trying to do. Don't be different for difference sake. Be different with a purpose. Have a mission. Have an identity, and then take that and use analytics. Use all the tools at your disposal to make it make sense.
Because, see, just the way you talk, if people would sit down, and I know a lot of them do. I mean, I'm not a decision maker in this league anymore. I used to be. But if they'll just sit down and do this rather than saying, I don't even want to explore that as to where it may be.
Told you, then they get their butt kicked by it.
Well,
see Eagles, see Chiefs.
So
great
when
analytics.
When you had to jump out there, you had to lay this out there early
Oh, yeah.
without any idea as to how it would be accepted. Am I right?
Yeah. I worked in the league office in 2008. I got a chance to sit with the competition committee. I learned I just was like really good at asking questions that I didn't know the answer to. I'm like, what does the off-ball linebacker do here? Do you know what it if you didn't call the do you know? No. And no one does it. I didn't know that, like, no one knew. I thought everyone knew in the room, but I just wasn't afraid to ask questions. But I asked a question with a purpose. I want to know what this off-ball linebacker is doing, because is it impacting whether or not the quarterback decides to hand the ball off or take the ball himself or to throw? Like, I wanted to understand the decision science behind it, because I understood that defense is all about, it's a decision tree. If I see this, it's not going to be this. That you rule things out instead of, like, the offense gets to pick what they're doing. The defense rules things out as certain things unfold.
See, just stop right there. That's exactly how you teach defense.
Yeah.
You don't play every snap.
No.
You eliminate what they're not going to do. Then you look at the way they line up, and you look at and that's the way.
I got taught well.
When you're
I listened.
Yeah, you did listen.
Yes.
Because when you're coaching, you say, I coached linebackers for years.
I love defense.
But
I would be a mean safety.
Get ahead. Well, because you would be smart.
Too.
You'd be smart enough to get pre-snap reads.
Yeah.
And telling the linebacker the biggest thing linebackers do in this is get ahead of the block.
That's right.
Don't defeat the block. Get ahead of the block.
It's angles. Everything is angles.
But you have to know what's coming.
Yep.
See this?
Yeah.
We could talk for
I know.
hours
I love it.
on this.
Yeah.
I love it. And my favorite part about, like, I loved being in those rooms. Number one, watching film in the dark with the cowboy clicker with the snacks. It's like, and swearing. Oh, it's my favorite.
And swearing.
Yeah. There needs to be some good curse words in there. Like,
When
that's
I fir-
really
when-
my, like.
Did anybody
it's
ever
my
make
love
you
language.
cry?
Yeah, of course. I got on air.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. A certain Indianapolis GM on air on ESPN went after me hard.
Oh.
And I held it in until I got to the green room. And I was like, dang. And we've since made up. But he's that one's a
Real quick
That's
for
a
the OT
doozy.
people. When I first when I stepped out of coaching and got into broadcasting,
Yep.
and I came, and these two, Ashley and Amie, they came to me and said, Coach Mack, after they were scared of me for a while.
You're very loud.
But then they came and said, could you teach us a little bit? So for one whole off season, 3 hours a day.
Yep.
I said, look, I don't need to practice my coaching, but I will, as long as you'll take notes, and and I made Amie run the cowboy clicker, and I would drill her. And I look over there, and she got tears coming out of her eyes. She said, I'm just so nervous. I said, stop being nervous and start being productive.
I think what I said is I'm doing my best.
But anyway, it was great.
And it was not received
because,
well.
and I could just see you that I could take it all, just I want to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was very amenable to learning. I also I'm good with being wrong as long as I have a good reason for being wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, so why is the sky blue? That's a stupid question to ask you. But there are stupid questions, right? But but if you say hey coach, what happened on play 43? I don't understand this.
Yeah.
They will tell you. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, I don't understand. The safety looked like it was here. Is it a false leverage? What is this? And they're like, well, he actually just read this wrong.
So now people, my whole point of this is now people are more receptive.
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
Less dismissive. Dismissive is what.
Yes.
I know there are a lot of people, some are visceral, but I think it sounds like they were dismissive, whatever that is. Yeah.
Dismissive, but also they're like, how can someone who's never played know anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
And listen, don't let this exterior fool you. I would have been a mean safety. But yeah.
As Coach Mack would say, this was what a coach would say, is she has no water in her bucket. She never did anything in the league. How are you going to tell me?
But I get that. I mean,
yeah.
and the other thing is you just kind of got to like everything else is do I love this more than all right, you're giving. Sometimes the negative feedback is good. It helped me be a better question asker, or more concise with my answers, or more, it framed up. I did learn something from that. That was feedback.
Critique is good.
Now, to be fair, I didn't really Twitter comments. I wasn't really learning from. But the one-on-one, I can see if someone's not if they're not getting it or they're being polite and shaking their I'm like, wait, do you want me to explain more? It's just be open to that and put check your ego at the door.
But seeing teams embrace it and continue to grow. I mean, analytics departments in the last
big data
year. I was going to ask you about
seventh big data bowl this season.
Yeah.
Over 400 people entered the big data bowl. The 5 top teams that came in. So every year we pick a topic. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't. Teams pick a topic, and they ask a question that they'd like answered with data. So this year was about pre-snap motion and the value of it. The funny part is, and I love the league for this, they give 8 games of next-gen stats data, but from 2 seasons ago. So literally we had some plays where Mercedes Lewis was there, and these college students were like, what happened first? These people were born, or Mercedes Lewis started in the league? I was like, but I just love that they sequester the good data, 2 years, whatever. So, but these people come up with these really great ideas, and they've ended up turning into things like expected rushing yards, which, by the way, the next-gen stats aren't perfect, but what they do is provide a good framework to look year over year. For example, this year we have the most expected rush yards for running backs and for quarterbacks that we've ever had. Since next-gen stats been tracking, right? For a running back, it was 4.2 yards. For a quarterback, it was 6 yards. Past years, it was 3.5 and 5.7 or something like that before. So it's just been interesting to see directionally how the big trends are moving. Now, we have a good defensive tackle class this year. Is that going to change? Are we going to now stop the run better? It's a pendulum. It swings back and forth, right, as we know. So, it's just directionally, right? It gives us clues as to where to look further, because all I'm doing is, if I'm working for you, Coach, all I'm doing is trying to make your life 10% easier.
See, and that's so great, because when I come here now in this role, I always spend at least 2 nights with position coaches saying, what's happening in the league right now?
Yep.
What's happening? What is happening?
Well, now everyone's looking for Zach Bond. They're who's the guy we can transition into be an off-ball linebacker who's an edge rusher before that it wasn't as good?
And that's right to
your
that's right to your point. Trends change. Mm-hmm. Trends change, and that's why if you keep up with it.
Yep.
But you've got to investigate it.
Yep.
Rather than just say, oh well, this is what's happening. It's fascinating, and you're to be commended for what you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That
Cynthia
means a lot.
Frelund, thank you so much.
You make me cry.
For hanging out with us.
There's good cry, not
good cry.
Nobody in the league loves to learn as much as Cynthia Frelund, and we got her.
Russ,
bank
account,
student loans. Whether you're buying or selling tickets to a Titans game or any live event in Nashville, SeatGeek is the place to do it. SeatGeek, the official ticketing partner of the Tennessee Titans, so Titans fans can fan. Home is the forefront of all we do. It's why we're so committed to caring for the places and spaces in which we work and live. Ashley, the official furniture provider of the Tennessee Titans. Little Caesars is the official pizza partner of your Tennessee Titans. Download the Little Caesars app and get your favorites delivered today. Delivery fees apply. Now, back to the OTP. Dane Brugler from The Athletic, thank you so much for hanging out with us a little bit here at the Combine.
Well, it's not the Combine until I get the chance to talk to you guys, right?
Exactly.
This is, I don't know how many years we've done this in a row, but
a lot.
It's working out. Let's keep it going.
It's a tradition.
It
exactly. So let's talk about this draft class and what makes it unique. What has stood out to you as you've been reviewing some of the tape? What are some of the trends that you're seeing?
It's a really polarizing quarterback group, that's for sure. I'm sure you guys know a little bit about that with the number 1 overall pick. And then, there's certain positions that are deep. Defensive lines stacked, running backs great, tight ends loaded. So there are certain positions that are just fun to study in this draft because there's so many of these guys. And they're all different. They offer something a little bit different. So trying to understand, what teams are going to value, where they're going to land in the draft. It's a lot of fun. So and then here at the Combine, it's a lot. The Combine's one big cross-checking exercise. So like the Hayes in the barn, we've watched the tape. We know about these guys. Now it's about just confirming what the tape says. If a guy's fast on tape, all right, let's see him run a 4.4. And if he doesn't, then it's like, all right, we need to go back and figure out, did we miss something? What's the disconnect there? So the Combine's a really valuable tool for me, for teams, where you just want to be able to cross-check what your initial evaluation says.
In your evaluation, can you tell me why this is a good year for the Titans to have the number 1 pick in the draft?
I think it's debatable when you look at, because every draft has its own identity. It's a little bit different. Right. Last year we had 3 guys at the top that I think you would have been over the moon drafting any of those top 3 quarterbacks. Talking about Caleb Williams, Jane Daniels, Drake May. And I think all 3 of them lived up to as rookies, where maybe it wasn't, Jane Daniels was phenomenal, but Caleb Williams wasn't perfect all the time, but you can at least see where it's going. This year, it's not as cut and dry. I think Cam Ward from Miami is the favorite to be the first quarterback drafted, whether that's at 1 or maybe somewhere else in the top 5. That's something that hopefully we get better sense of here this week and then throughout the process. But if the Titans decide, it's never a bad year to have the number 1 pick, because there's always going to be someone at the top or someone that has interest where, okay, if you stick and pick and it's not a quarterback, hey, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, 2 really dynamic players, cornerstone type of guys that are going to make your roster better. But there's also, an interesting quarterback or 2 at the top where your phone should be ringing. So if I'm the Titans, I'm going through this process giving off vibes like we're going to take a quarterback, because that's just going to help me, the teams behind us, whether Giants, Raiders, whoever it may be, teams may be a little more desperate for a quarterback. They're going to up the ante if they're going to give us a call and say, hey, what do you think about, a 2 and a 3 or whatever it may end up being. So at the end of the day, you just want options. And, for a team like the Titans that, you have the number 1 pick for a reason. So it's how are we going to get better? Not just for 2025, but for the next 3 years, 4 years. What is the decisions we need to do or make right now that's going to put us on a path to success? And this is a really interesting year to have that number 1 overall pick, and it's a big opportunity for this organization.
You and I both were brought up in the scouting world by a legend.
The legend,
C.O. Bricado.
That's right.
It's fun for me to talk to you every year like this because just so much.
We could talk for hours about CO and what he meant for the league, for the scouting community, and for each of us individually. It's really awesome.
When CO would talk about a player, I was in a lot of draft rooms with him for a lot of years. He'd say, "Just give me a plus and a minus on this guy. That's all I want. That's all I want to hear." Do you still go by that? Just give me a bullet point. CO didn't like a lot of BS.
Right. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
CO didn't like you to wander around. CO, I use this with Rhett. CO, don't give me the Charles Dickens novel on this dude.
Yeah.
I want some bullet points. Do you still you still subscribe to that? I always have.
No doubt. Because at the end of the day, yeah, sure, I can give you a manifesto about a player and all these different things, but sometimes we get too much in the weeds on these guys. At the end of the day, what makes them successful, or what's one area where if things get disrupted, it's because of this. And so, no doubt about it. Things I took away from CO were just to be succinct with your evaluations, and then also just the importance of being observant. Sometimes being a scout is just being observant, and there's no such thing as a a genius scout, or it's about being observant. And the best scouts were always the guys that were the most observant.
I've been in a lot of draft rooms with him where, somebody would be reading a report and reading a report and reading a report, and CO would slap the table and go,
"Is he good or not?"
I still don't know if he can play.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I still don't know if he can play.
Give me a couple of guys, because, of course, everybody in the world knows about the Beast, and hats off to you for that, because that is the gift of the draft season every year. But give me a couple of the guys that you think will explode in testing this week. Like Jihad Campbell is one of those from Alabama that I think will test here very well.
Yeah, the guy's a freak. And he's interesting because he was recruited as a pass rusher. But because they were kind of stacked at pass rusher, they stood him up as a linebacker. And so the instincts aren't, they're developing. They're a work in progress. He's not there yet. But he still had 117 tackles this year. You don't do that by, being a bad football player. So the athleticism, the way he moves, the range. But I think, my favorite tape was he was getting after the quarterback. So how do you work that into? How does that work in your scheme? If you're going to draft a player like that, you have to make sure your defensive coordinator's on board with, hey, yeah, he can do this, this, and this, but he gets after the quarterback. That's what he does really well. Jalen Walker, same thing from Georgia, who a freak guy with length, and when they let him rush, he would get home. But can he be a true edge rusher, or are you going to play him off the ball? So there are a few conversion guys, but back to your point about the guys that are going to blow up this year, no doubt about it. Campbell's one of them. Nick Emenwari from South Carolina, the safety, 6'2", 225 pounds, and his jumps will be 40 inches in the vert. He'll be over 11 in the broad. Very eager to see what his 40 comes out being, because the mile per hour says he's going to run under 4.4. Will that show in the testing? He's a really unique player who's already kind of in that first-round conversation, but could help himself even more. Shamar Stewart, who was at the Senior Bowl, 280 pounds, shouldn't move like that. 280 pounds shouldn't have that burst off the ball and the ability to corner, flatten, get to the quarterback, but he can do it. So he's long. He doesn't have bad weight on him. It's well distributed. He's a really good player. It's just people look at the 1.5 sacks. They kind of get obsessed with that instead of looking at the tape and saying, hey, he's getting home. He's disrupting the quarterback. At the end of the day, yeah, you would love for your guy to have 15 sacks, but more than anything, I want him to affect the quarterback. And that's what Shamar Stewart did consistently. And I think based on how he tests this week, I can't wait to see his 10-yard split. I think it'll be somewhere in the 1.5s, which is, Von Miller, I think, was a 1.59. So anything in the 1.5s at 280 pounds is going to be outstanding. He'll come away from this week creating a little bit of buzz for himself.
Dane, the medical checks are always huge here.
Yeah. Huge.
And I think a lot of people wanted to see Abdul Carter work, but we know what Abdul Carter is.
Yep.
He's a can't-miss prospect. But for somebody that is being talked about in the first round, Siobhan Revel from ECU, the corner. It's a shame that he had the ACL surgery back in the middle of October, because I'd love to see that guy test this week.
Yeah, and I talked with Siobhan last week, and if anybody that can work back from an ACL, it's this guy. The amount of adversity he's had to face in his life, going back to high school, and then he didn't have the grades to out of high school to go to a top college, so he goes to Lewisburg College. COVID wipes out his first season. He's working at Amazon. He doesn't know where he's going. At ECU, East Carolina, has a prospect camp. He shows up, blows everybody away, has a roster spot, gets his grades back on track. 2023 comes along, and he has his breakout year, and Alabama's calling him, Penn State's calling him, Ohio State's calling him, and he decides to stay loyal. And then, of course, the ACL injury happened, which is heartbreaking. But if anybody that can overcome it, it's him, because of his ability to overcome adversity throughout his life. So he's expected to be cleared. He's running a little bit right now, but not enough where he's going to test before the draft. Sometime over the summer is when he'll get a chance to be back full healthy. He's a top 50 player in this draft, and even with the ACL, as long as nothing else pops up for the team trainers and physicians, he'll go somewhere in the top 50, and a team will get a little bit of a discount on a good player.
Let's go back to CO real quick. I've got 3 offensive tackles I want to ask you about, and just good, bad on each one of them. Donovan Jackson, Ohio State.
Versatility. He was the unsung hero for Ohio State this year. As soon as Josh Simmons got hurt, he kicked out from guard to left tackle. that first game was a little dicey against Abdul Carter and Penn State, but the rest of the year, in the playoffs especially, pitched a shutout. So versatility is the first thing that stands out with him. In terms of maybe some areas that you maybe question a little bit, balance at contact. There are some times where he falls off a little bit, but this is a good player. That versatility is something that you key in on, whether it's a guard, whether it's a tackle. Coming back for his senior year, I think, was such a key decision, something that changed for him and really turned him into a top 50 type of guy.
Ariante Ursary from Minnesota.
I struggle with him. I do.
Yeah,
there's not many Ursaries just walking around. Guys that are that big and move like him. If you rush him down to center, he'll stop you. He has that power in his body where he's going to slow you down, grind down that rush. But if you attack his edges, that's where he starts to break down a little bit. And so I think, he's a little bit of a late bloomer. He'll get better and better. So I think, you're drafting Ursary for not necessarily who he is now, but what he's going to grow into. But it just gives me a little bit of pause in terms. If we're talking about him as a first-round guy, it scares me a little bit. If we're talking about him as a second-round guy, all right, I like the value there because there's some bust potential there. But I see the traits, I see the talent, I like what he could develop into.
Cameron Williams from Texas.
Cam's a tough one because one-year starter, all right?
Yep.
But again, they don't make him like guys that look like that just don't come around very often. And so he moves really well for 340 pounds or whatever he's going to be this week. We talked about the medicals. The knee's going to be important with him. With the knee, it's nothing. It wasn't like he didn't miss half the year. He only missed one game this year because of the knee. But it's something that teams need to sign off on. So the knee will be big. He's raw. He's very raw. He's a one-year starter. And so, how long before you feel comfortable putting him out there on an NFL field? I'm not sure what that answer is, and that's where I hope my offensive line coach has a better answer because he needs to kind of be rebuilt with his technique and some of his movements, but he has the traits. He has the tools. So he's a tough prospect to talk about because he's really talented, but he's just not NFL ready right now.
That's why I ask you because I know you know.
The Titans need a right tackle, and there's a guy I've been watching for a while and a value pick, I think, probably late night 2, early day 3, Ozzie Trapillo, Boston College.
Yeah, and he's a legacy guy. His dad played in the league before he passed away, unfortunately. But he's a taller guy, and usually with those taller guys, they lose leverage so easily, and they could be really bullied at the point of attack. But he does a nice job sitting down. He's a good athlete, moves well. I've been impressed with him. I think he has. If you don't get your tackle in the top 50 picks, I think he's the guy outside the top 50 picks that's like, hey, let's target him. Let's go after him. I think we might have a starter on our hands. So yeah, in a tackle class that's, I wouldn't call it deep. He's one of the few that probably isn't going to go top 50, but I think has starter potential once you get outside that top 50.
All right, hit me with something on a guy that a lot of people don't know about, but are going to learn more about this week and going forward. William and Mary tackle Charles Grant.
That's right. Yeah, he. I almost brought him up when you asked about who's going to rise this year or at the combine because of the way they test. He is an absolute freak, and he didn't grow up being a football player. He didn't really play football till high school.
Junior year, I think, right?
Yeah, he kind of got involved as a sophomore, but he didn't really get reps until his junior year. He was a wrestler, played a little bit of basketball growing up, but he really didn't focus in on football until he got to junior year in high school, and then goes to William & Mary. He's 240 pounds. He needs a lot of work, and he still needs a lot of work. I thought the Senior Bowl was going to kind of be his launch point to see how he did, but he got hurt the final game of the year, so he had to miss the Senior Bowl. I'm told he's going to be a full participant here at the Combine, which will be huge because he should test really well. Talk about the 10-yard split, talk about the 3-cone, just the way he moves is really unique. But, again, how far away is he from – because he's really light. He's probably going to be around 295 pounds. How far away is he from seeing those NFL snaps? So a little bit more of a developmental guy than a plug-and-play guy, but a guy that you don't have these traits very often.
Give me one corner in the belly of this draft, which is the strength of the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talk about
ones.
The tackle. Last year we were spoiled with the way the tackles came off the board.
No doubt.
You got you one. Give me one corner in the belly of it.
Denzel Burke from Ohio State's one of those guys who, he's not going to be a top 75 pick probably.
Yeah.
But, once you get outside he's he's a 4-year starter at Ohio State, and he's battle tested. There's some low lows on his tape, but there's also some high highs. And give me the corner that's battle tested, because it's very much a mentality position where you need the speed, you need these athletic tools, but you also need to be able to come back from a mistake and act like it didn't happen, and I think he can do that.
That's a range I was looking for. CO would be proud.
I'd love to hear that.
Dane, you touched on quarterbacks. There's 2 at the top. It's debatable who's the third. A lot of people mention Jackson Dart from Ole Miss as kind of being in there. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Kyle McCord from Syracuse, who I think can help himself this week. And then we saw kind of things that maybe Tyler Shuck can build off of from the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I'm a big Tyler Shuck guy. I think people would get obsessed with the age, the fact that he's going to be a 26-year-old rookie. And, the medicals need to check out. He missed a lot of time in college, so the medicals need to check out. But the guy, in terms of just talent, he's among the best in this class, and just in pure talent. The size, the mobility, and the arm. The ball explodes off his hand. To see him finally healthy this year at Louisville and Brom's offense was a lot of fun to watch. So if I had to bet on a quarterback outside the first round, it's Tyler Shuck all day. And I get it. You want 22-year-old, 21-year-old quarterback. There's some value to being a little bit older. I know we don't see it very often. this isn't like a Brandon Weeden situation. It's just a very unique situation. And so Tyler Shuck is a guy that I think is a worthy roll of the dice when you get outside the first round. If it doesn't work, all right, next year you move on. But it's a day 2 pick, so you don't feel like you're totally invested where you can't move on the next year. Kyle McCord, I agree, he can help himself this week, especially in the interviews, because that's where I think he separates himself, how sharp he is. He's not, in terms of mobility, that's not where he really – that's why Ohio State decided to kind of move on and, in their mind, upgrade with a guy like Will Howard, because Will Howard gave you that mobility aspect. What do you do with his legs? And it worked out. They won a national championship. McCord, though, is so good from the pocket. He can anticipate. He can throw a very accurate ball. He is I do worry about him extending plays, and he's not necessarily a creative quarterback, but he can go make plays consistently from the pocket, and that's not a bad place to start with a quarterback.
Brian Callahan, the head coach, had been asked about running backs today. He says he's happy with Tony Pollard and with Tajay Spears, but there's value in this draft at the running back position. I'm going to ask you about Kyle McCord's back and LaQuinn Allen. He's 3-down back, right?
That's the thing you like the most about LaQuinn Allen is what he can do on passing downs. He can catch the ball and he can block. So I don't think he's ever going to be a full featured guy in the NFL, but as an electric committee back, oh yeah, he has a lot of value because special teams, catching the football, blocking, he can do those 3 things. And so is that going to be 3rd round, 4th round? We'll see where he ends up being drafted. But, you're absolutely right about the depth of this running back class. That might be the biggest argument not to take an Ashton Genty in the first round, because you feel good about getting a running back day 2, day 3, a guy that's going to make an impact for your team. So it's just a loaded – I think I gave draftable grades to 32 running backs this year.
Wow.
And all 32 aren't going to get drafted. There's not every team's going to draft a running back.
Let's stay on running backs. Devin Neal from KU.
Different body type, but – play style reminds me a little bit of Kyron Williams with the Rams. Just the way he plays. He's not, I wouldn't call him explosive, but he glides. He's just really well balanced in and out of his cuts. Another guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. And, there's something to be said about, in terms of character, he might be one of the top character guys in the draft.
Yeah.
Lawrence kid. It stayed put and had plenty of opportunities to go elsewhere, could have transferred. Then he stayed put, became the school's all-time leading rusher. He's a really talented guy. I think it would be easy for him to get lost in a loaded running back class. But, yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because he's a fun player.
That's why I wanted to ask you about him. You kind of look at that. It's a great description as a glider.
Yeah.
A lot of time those gliders don't take a lot of big hits.
No, absolutely. And he's balanced, so he's in and out of his cuts really smoothly. I don't think he's going to – like the 40, I don't think it's going to be exceptional.
No.
But, he just knows how to play the running back position and not going to get a lot of hits on his body. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Dane, the Titans need off-ball linebackers. I'm going to ask you about a couple. One that I'm interested in Cody Lindenberg, Minnesota.
Yeah, he was a Senior Bowl guy. He's I think when you talk about progression and getting better, he's a good example of that, where, you watch him, his underclassmen tape, it's like, all right, solid player, moves okay. And then you watch him get better and better every year. And that's what gives you, encouragement for, okay, because ideally you want to love the player right now, but then also see the upside and see, okay, I like who he is now, but he can get better here, here, and here. And with our coaches, I know he's going to be a better player. And so I think Cody Lindenberg, that's a good example of that, who he sees the field well, he reacts well, and when he does drive on the ball, he can go make a play. So the strength of this linebacker class, I think, like as much I love Campbell, Carson Schwestinger from UCLA is one of my favorite players in this draft. A little bit light for the linebacker position. You see that with some of his take on, but the speed, the range, the smarts, the instincts are outstanding. But the strength of this linebacker class is between rounds 3 and 5.
Yep.
There's 10, maybe 8 to 10 guys in that rounds 3 to 5 range that are just good quality linebackers. There might be something maybe they're missing that's keeping them from going higher. Whether, Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma, not the best coverage player, but outstanding downhill. Chris Paul from Ole Miss. He doesn't have the length that you want, but another rangy, active player. So a lot of linebackers in that 3rd to 5th round mix, and Lindenberg's one of them.
A guy in that range, the converted safety, Oregon, Jeffrey Bassa.
Yeah, another guy didn't play football until later on. Is kind of and you could see that watching his underclassmen tape, and then another guy got better and better and better. Had a good week at the Senior Bowl. Moves really well. He should test pretty well here at the Combine, and what you expect from a forward safety. So, but in his drops, he looks good. Downhill, he looks good. As long as he sees it, he can attack it. And so, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He is in that mix in that 3rd to 5th round range.
Tight end is a nice class.
Oh, it's loaded.
Year. Harold Fannin Jr.
Yeah, and is he a tight end, or is he more of an H-back, or, kind of just figuring out his exact role is going to be important, yeah. And so, but how many 20-year-olds catch 117 passes? I don't care if he played in the MAC or Bowling Green. He played at a high level, and he's not a bad athlete. I'm not saying that. He's just a little bit of an awkward athlete. And so, but he's linearly explosive, and he catches everything. And again, he's 20 years old. He's still so young that, he's one of 5 or 6 tight ends in this draft that I think you look at and say, all right, yeah, we can feature him in our offense as someone that's more than just a complementary piece. He is someone that will be part of what makes our offense great. And, yeah, Fannin's in that mix. He'll be somewhere off the board in day 2. But I do think that he's a little unique where he won't be for everybody. But if you find the right role for him, he will explode.
Dane Brugler, I think we could keep you here all day. We'd run through the entire draft class if we could with you.
I'd love that, yeah.
Hey, I mean, you're welcome to stay, but I know you're a very busy man. A lot of people want to talk to you, but we so appreciate your time, and we look forward to the Beast.
Can't wait, yeah.
Do we have a drop date?
One day I'll wake up and hit a wall and be like, all right, yeah, here you go, guys.
Done.
See it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dane Brugler, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, guys.
Hey Titans fans, with a Kroger Boost membership, you'll score big with double fuel points, free delivery, and lots more. Go to Kroger.com/boost for details. Kroger, the official grocer of the Tennessee Titans. Tighten up. The OTP, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. When it's game day for your health coverage, trust Farm Bureau Health Plans to draw up a winning play for you. They've been covering Tennesseans for nearly 80 years. Now, back to the OTP. Big thank you to Dane Brugler and Cynthia Frelund for hanging out with us, plus Rhett, Bryan, Coach Mac. I'm Amie Wells, thanking you for being here for the OTP.